is there.
Srishti, you need to tell me if I'm going live on Facebook. Huh?
So checking right away, sir.
No, not now. I've not done it yet.
Okay,
But
okay. That.
whenever it happens, I'll do it closer to. Otherwise, all this banter come, and I have kind of listening to what Mihir tells. So I started that, and Mihir, that one in my enthusiasm to have only the gist of it, I didn't even put my introduction onto the thing.
Oh yeah. No, I appreciated your introduction.
Yeah, so
your deep voice is a great start to these shows, and you are definitely.
I missed it. I was so concerned that it should come out well. I forgot to go and click live. Then I finished that, and then when you started, oh my God! So I went and then go live. Click go live. So.
I think starting with your introduction is good.
But today, Sri, Mukesh will do.
Okay. I think Mr. Kamath is online.
Yeah, he's online. He's
coming online.
Yeah, I was trying to reach sir actually.
Yeah.
I
think I'm online.
Hello, sir. Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
So we are not able to see you, I think.
Yeah. Why is that?
We checked it yesterday or day before yesterday.
I just now pressed my start my video. Okay. Let's see.
Okay, and your voice is, sir, very low. Okay, fine.
I'll come back. I'll come here. The video is on now.
We are able to hear and we are able to see both.
We can hear.
The voice now okay?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely fine.
Good.
And sir has a very great background, our saffron background.
And where is Mihir? Mihir, you are based in which country, which city?
So I'm currently in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay, so that's early morning to you. Morning for you. Well,
9:30 a.m.
9:30, not that early.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I was actually an anchor with NDTV Profit back in 2009-10, and often on the headlines because ICICI was quite a mover and shaker then. And in awe of your leadership, and it's just a real pleasure to have a few minutes with you.
Yeah. So we will, broadly, I think the subject it sounds good, and I think we can do a good job around it. We're talking about the reset, right?
My thought was, I think with your 20-minute presentation, I think people have a good sense on the reset. And, I've also watched a few of your videos and your points around it. And maybe we'll segue from it. But from what I understand, every day there's a new personality here, for Tech Mahindra. And we would love to know a little bit about your life, prior to your current role, to the helm of some organizations. And, as always, I have some rapid fire questions in an attempt to get to know you better. So I hope you don't mind that we will end with that.
Okay. So you will start with that, or you will end with that, or how is it?
We'll end with that, and please don't.
With that.
It'll be just some short questions, but I think I want to touch on all facets of your life. The new development bank, your time at ICICI, your time at Infosys. And even, what IIM Ahmedabad was like. But we'll just go with the flow. We'll see, I'll see your responses and then take it from there.
Good. So I'm sure it'll be interesting. So how many of your colleagues do we expect to be on chat?
I'll let KG take that.
Typically, these days, we get upwards of 300. Yeah. When we started the show, today is the 99th show, sir. Tomorrow's 100th. And when we started this off, we would get 50 and 60 and all that. And people would wonder, kya chal raha hai? So, then, and of course, as we are going along, the celebrity quotient is increasing by the day. And, and with you coming on the show, like, oh my God, he got KV Kamath and, that kind of stuff. I didn't get though. It is Mukesh Sharma. I'm just beneficiary of this.
Indeed.
A lot of viewership after too, after the live recording, people tend to watch it, and it's put on a number of platforms. So I think this will have quite a life after the live version.
So interesting. So you've been doing one every day, you said?
Okay,
Do
well, you know
99?
how CP is, right? I mean, you know him. So he is like relentless. So when he started this off, he said every day. So and I said, okay, Monday to Friday, thank you. He said, no, even Saturday, Sunday.
Sunday.
So I said, oh my God. So, we did that way for 66 episodes. And then, we had some excuse. So, Anand Mahindra also tweeted about webinar fatigue and all that. So then, he relented a bit and made it Monday to Friday.
So the only thing in that fatigue bit is whether each speaker speaks the same thing, and then you get certainly you'll get overloaded.
Yeah, we try to brief the speaker. So, for example, after some 30 episode, we started to tell people avoid COVID and that kind of stuff, right? So, but I think every person brings a very different perspective. Like yesterday, Mukesh got a professor from IIM Bangalore, Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. So she was so passionate, and she also spoke COVID, but her perspective was so different and so energizing. I think that was good. And then in the early days, we had a husband of a Tech Mahindra employee who was on the flight that was hijacked to Kandahar.
Oh, that's a very interesting experience. So the gentleman spoke about that.
What I did, what happened, how the ups and downs on a daily basis. Today I will die, tomorrow I won't, and it was fascinating. Then we had also a cricketer come in, like Sairaj Bahutule, who was on the same car which crashed and killed the son of this guy, Jagjit Singh, the singer.
Oh, the singer.
He was there. He died. Sairaj Bahutule's legs were crushed, and they told him he'll never play cricket. So he bounced back from there and played Test cricket. Not too many, 3 of them he played, but he played. So those kinds of those resilience things we bring. So
amazing stories.
Yeah. And then of course, there were a lot of corporate denizens who came in. There was Shiv Kumar of Pepsi.
I know Shiv. Yes.
He's now in Aditya. So he spoke.
I knew. Where is he now? When I knew him, he was in Nokia.
He's in Aditya Birla Group now.
He's in Aditya Birla Group.
Yeah. Then we had Ganesh Natarajan came. Then that government officials, Professor Vijay Raghavan, Prime Minister's office.
He's very good.
Yeah,
Chief Scientific Advisor, right?
Correct. Then Dr. Indu Bhushan came. Atman.
Yeah, he's also a very interesting person.
Yes.
He was formerly with the Asian Development Bank, and we had interacted. He's CEO of Ayush, right?
Correct. And then he came. So everybody obviously asked him, when will this go away? And then so he's the best position. He was little, he said, as a personal thing, he says, we're going to live with this. That's what he said.
Yeah. So you've given a good perspective. Maybe I'll then weave in a few anecdotes into the 20 minutes.
Yes, please.
Because that will make it more relevant to what we are talking of, resets. And the theme that, just so that as we start, is basically about resetting the mind. I'm going to come back to that. Yes. And if I don't, I think later on you can probably cue me on stories or what I want to share on resetting the mind. Because that, I think, is going to be a major outcome of the current challenge before us. For the good. Minds will be reset for the good. So from an individual level, from a corporate level, it will be good.
Super, sir. I think we are at 7:01 time. So I am going live on Facebook. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, going live. So over to you, Mukesh.
Yes. So I think thanks, KG, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was thinking how to introduce a personality like Mr. KV Kamath, because he does not need any introduction. A Padma Bhushan, a Forbes Asia Businessman of the Year, Economic Time Business Leader of the Year, most e-savvy CEO amongst the Asian banks in his early days, ex-chairman of Infosys, ex-CEO of ICICI. I think one can only count the titles, and we can vividly imagine his rich 50 years of experience in multiple roles. I have been personally lucky to know Mr. Kamath during his stay in Shanghai, and I can only express my sincere gratitude and deepest thanks to a man who is more than an epitome of simplicity. As an Indian citizen living in Shanghai, we always felt so proud of Mr. Kamath's presence in China. So now he's relocated back after his tenure. We are really missing him. We celebrated several moments in Indian community over the 5 years, and he was always there to support us. In last years of my interaction with Mr. Kamath at different platforms, I can say that he had solutions to every situation. I recall some occasions where we took some important calls related to community, and his guidance and his approach proved so crucial for our defining new paths. On personal front, I learned that how one can be humble, approachable, and carry that gentle smile, connect to the people, whether young or old or any category. I recall last year when one of the important gatherings, Kamath had traveled for 30-hour long flight from Brazil post his BRICS summit to arrive almost straight into the event. That has been his humility and support to all of us. So all of us at Tech Mahindra, sir, are extremely excited to learn from you today. So without much ado, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mukesh. Thank you, friends, for being on this chat. I will, as we said earlier, speak for about 20 minutes, and then we'll let it flow, as it were. We're talking of resets. We're talking of reset of minds. In my view, that is important. Though the subject matter is how will this reset nations, economies, and the businesses. But to me, the undercurrent is resetting the mind, and I will visit this theme as we go along, and maybe use a few examples from my own past, as it were, to put in context. But let me just paint a picture of where we are as a nation and where the world is. Yes, there are challenges, but interestingly, we are looking at some very interesting environmental, I would say, context. One is things are benign. We have oil price, which is low. We have commodity prices, which are low. Inflation, which is, again, at very manageable levels. Low, I would say. Interest rates at historic lows. And disruption. I want to touch upon this and maybe revisit that along with reset the mind and disruption. Disruption is a positive. So I sketched 4 other positives, and I'm going to put disruption as a positive because disruption is allowing things to happen which earlier on we never thought would happen, and we will discuss that as we go. In the domestic context, we have negatives which we all seen. So I will just run through them because other speakers would have taken us through. We have had the challenge of migrants. We have the challenge of self-employed people, who basically did not find their profession continuing, as it were. The MSME sector, we then had consumer-facing businesses get challenged. We have had real estate sector, construction sector, hotel, travel, tourism, all under challenge, and possibly infrastructure. All the things that we are doing on infrastructure pushed back, as it were. So we have a whole set of challenges as a nation. And of course, one last challenge I'll put in there, the repair that will be required of, say, the financial sector and maybe some other balance sheets as the impact of this is felt in an economic context. We better understand the impact, as it were. Having said that, domestic positives, as I said, the global positives were the lows, inflation et al. Now, if you look at domestic positives, I think the big positive has been agriculture, agri-processing industries, everything around the agriculture world, as it were, to me is a huge positive. You then have rural employment as a consequence of agriculture, and probably businesses, processing businesses, moving back to rural India. So I think to me that's a positive. Rural demand, we're already seeing that happen in certain areas, and that has been a big push to putting corporate India back on its feet, as it were. You then have rural enterprises coming up. You again, as I mentioned, we have low inflation in India. low commodity prices in India. And a very interesting thing, unlike the past challenges we had a big challenge in 1990, in 2000, 2010. I will just pick on these three. The underlying theme there was corporate balance sheets got destroyed almost beyond repair because they were over leveraged. Again, I don't want to go into the theory of leverage, but suffice to say, this time around, if I look at the Sensex companies, probably 45% of them have very little or no debt. So that gives them a whole lot of ability to bounce back, as it were, in terms of what they are doing. Then I think we come back to the supply chains that are getting restored much faster than what I thought they would take. Since if you look at Mahindra and Mahindra itself, for example, that they could restore the supply chain and get production up, or any of the auto companies, the motorcycle companies. Two months back, I did not give it even a 25% probability that the supply chain will come back, because their employees were disrupted. The whole model, I thought, was disrupted and so on, but things bounced back very quickly. So the supply chain is coming back very quickly. Our large knowledge sector, you're all a part of that. That has weathered this beautifully, spewing out a whole lot of lessons to everyone around us, to the company itself, the business, and to the country at large and the world at large. You've been a model in terms of what is possible with the knowledge sector, the work from home. And work from home, I think, is going to be an ethic now, rather than something that we did during this time of challenge. This is going to be the basic ethic in terms of how we will work. We, of course, saw in India dramatically growing e-sector, and the digital, in a way, replacing the physical, and at the minimum coexisting very strongly with the physical part of it. Now, all this was supported by positive steps taken by the government. I'm sure in all the sessions that you have had, people would have touched upon this, but I'm going to just touch on in 1 minute then. One is the challenge of the migrants and the self-employed, done through, I would say, support that was very, I would say, effectively crafted, the food grain support and so on. So that was the first part of it, which I would call subsistence support, which allowed people to meet their subsistence needs in a way. Support to the MSME sector, without which supply chains would not have come back. Support to agriculture and the agriculture reform process that we are talking of. And these are steps that we could not take for 40, 50 years, which are getting pushed through. At an individual level and at a firm level, the moratoriums that were provided in terms of what you owed on the EMI or on the installments and interest that corporates owed to banks, I think has gone a big way in getting the supply chain back and not disrupting either individual balance sheets or corporate balance sheets. And now, I heard this today that the government will support the financial sector, particularly, I think, the public sector part of it, with the financial capital, that is share capital, if they need it. And probably they will need it if you look at early numbers coming out from the financial sector players. I think our economy has resilience, and with these support steps, we will probably see a large part of the economy coming back much quicker than what we would have imagined. But in all this, this is a new normal. When we come back, I don't think we are going to come back to the normal as we knew it. We're going to come back to a new normal, and it is, I would believe, pointless to evaluate this against old yardsticks. In any context, typically economic context, you would have heard in the first month, our growth is going to contract. That is, it's going to be negative. Nobody talks about that anymore, because I think people are understanding this is a new normal that we are going to go. And I'm sure businesses are also thinking of the new normal, and the individual also thinking of the new normal in terms of what he or she would need to do to adjust to the future, as it were. And all this is happening at the the pace of what I would call a blink. In the past, we all know how long for things to happen. And I would say the process of change was very slow. If you look at the steam engine, how long it took to actually unleash electricity. How long did it take to catch on? The computer business that all of you are in, internet, Moore's law, alive and well for a very, very long period of time, but we'll touch on that in a minute. All this took place at its own pace. The last few years, we were tempted to use the phrase accelerated change because we thought that is acceleration. When you looked at what happened post, let us say, 98, 99, the internet getting more and more prevalent and companies harnessing the power of the internet, harnessing the leveraging of the internet. And today we thought, oh, we are now accelerated change. But what has happened this time around, change is happening at, I would say, in a blink, as it were. Why do I say a blink? Let's say that sometime in March, we were all attending office till, say, 20th of March. 21st of March, nobody attended office. Or maybe 10 people are in office. And there were 5,000 people maybe in enterprise outside office function. In your context, much larger number. I'm taking a number for a reasonable size institution. Banks, 100,000 people in a bank, maybe today 500 people are in the office. So things have happened in a blink, and the support infrastructure, a lot of it that your team provides to your clients and enterprises that you work with, all came together in that blink. So acceleration times, in terms of change times, from the phrase accelerating has now become in a blink, as it were. And to me, I add another word to this. This is disruptive. So this is a reset that has happened in a disruptive manner. Disruptive again in a positive way. Disruption typically is taken as doing a lot of harm. Disruption in a very positive way. And this disruption has embraced nations, it is embracing economies, it is embracing businesses, and is forcing a response from these players, nations, and so on. It is impacting the rich, it is impacting the poor countries. And the only differentiator in this could be digital versus the rest. If somebody had not embraced digital, then probably that nation, that individual will be behind. But my own experience is that in the Indian context, even the lay customer, the lay user who did not embrace technology is today embracing technology. We'll talk about that in a little while. So this whole thing leads me to what I put as receptivity to change. Receptivity to change was very low. It then accelerated. It is now happening in a blink. And the reset that we talked about several resets, is now a reset of the mind. Your mind is getting reset. The mind is accepting. The mind is willing to implement and execute all in real time, all here and now, as it were. And as I said, it is happening at the company level, the individual level, and the client level. One key out of this, which is, I think, very positive to your business and to, of course, your clients, was the client's inability to accept change. You would have suggested something the client would not have accepted. Now, this client is going to be receptive. The client itself is going to put in the change. Because here, if you look at the client, the mainframe mindset, how long did that take to get out of their mind? It's still not gone out. Some clients still have the mainframe mindset. The mainframe might have gone, but the mindset still continues. I think that is going to be completely disrupted in this in this episode, as it were. And you have a client who will be much more receptive to lateral thought that you might be pushing at the client, and which is truly required for them to get to the next level, as it were. I will use one example and then maybe run through the rest of it. and that is at the individual level. All of you would have, whichever city you are in, India or abroad, would have seen the response to technology and the response from the housewife. Housewife who never used digital platforms, housewives who never used digital payment platforms or internet platforms or web-based platforms. Virtually in the blink of an eye, in that case, in this case, I would say 5 to 7 days, they had set up supply chains. They had basically set up a marketplace farm to home. Initially, I have seen it handwritten orders, payment in cash when the goods came to your door. Then it moved to an internet-based thing. Then it moved to WhatsApp-based thing. And then the other guy at the other end got smart. He set up an app. He set up the digital payment. And the whole thing moved on to a digital payment platform, all in 10 days. Housewives, at least in the apartment complex I live in today, they all know how to manipulate Google Sheets. They all know how to manipulate Excel sheets. Of course, app-based orders, they are, they have gotten on that very much earlier. But these were things they never knew. And they were seeing these for the first time, but they embraced it. And my point is that if our lay housewife could use this and so quickly adapt and reset the mind, I think it must be much easier for the corporates to do the same thing as they go along. So the new, I would say, the new mindset, what I would call the new world order, the post scenario, as it were, I would use the phraseology apps and beyond, because you're going to go beyond apps. You're going to go beyond clouds, cloud and beyond, artificial intelligence and beyond. And I would use the phrase, it's a mind reset and beyond. So putting all this together, how does your mind get resolved? I think that's what's going to happen. And before we got on the chat, I was just talking to Mihir and your colleague KJ, and I said that I'm going to propose, I won't talk about COVID, but I'll use the word COVID once here to say COVID has put an end to the day Moore's law ended. And also, long back, I put in something called the 90-day rule. A very simple rule. If there's a technology project that you need to do, you either do it in 90 days or you're not going to do it. So any technology project, at least in my previous avatar at ICICI Bank, that needed to be done, had to be done, executed in 90 days. So I think it's now 90 days and beyond. As I said, it's now in a blink of an eye. Your customer is going to say, my problem is now, I need resolution now. So where do we go with this? I think e-platform, the whole word e is going to have a different meaning from now onwards. Personal mobility, e-learning, e-office, e-shopping, digital reigns. I think this is what we'll see in the future. My last few thoughts. In this world, we need optimism. We need what I would call out of the box. This is a word which has been trashed, but I think truly you need leadership of lateral dimensions to seize the advantage in this business. You need to be tactical, and you need to be doing continuous adjustments to whatever you're doing. The most minimum sense or barest sense to strategy, but essentially to whatever you're doing. You need to calibrate things around you all the time. Earlier on, you had the luxury of looking at the big picture, the dots in the sky, and then connecting them. I think that luxury probably is not there. I think we need to look and work with high frequency indicators, and probably that itself is a new opportunity to tech stalwarts like you. How do we get this to in real time to the desk or the handheld device of your customer, so that the customer can marshal this and proceed? And then how do you ride what I'd call dynamic shifts? And ultimately, of course, it is execution to serve the customer who is here and now. In all this, I think I go back to the phraseology that the Prime Minister has used, Atmanirbhar. And this is going to be a key at the individual level or at the corporate level. And I will end by saying that I believe that this adjustment to the new normal will happen faster than what any one of us imagined. It's already happening faster than what we imagined. And what's required now is the big dose of optimism, that big dose of lateral thinking, so that we can drive this change and this reset minds, businesses, nations, and economies. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Mr. Kamath, let me first of all say that it's a real honor to have some time with you. And I want to thank you for what will next year be almost 50 years of service. I think you started in 1971. You graduated from the Indian Institute of Management in 1971. And since then, you've had almost an ideal script, right? You've been the architect of one of the greatest banking stories, a chairman of one of the most successful IT firms, then a leader of a new age institution, a bank. And that is a rival to IMF and the World Bank. And, along with getting your perspectives, I would love for today's viewers to get a sense of your life too. As a professor of practice, I believe that there's a lot of learning from practice in the past. And just within these roles and towards the future too, I wanted to ask you how these leadership roles came into your life. Was it luck? Was it conscious decision, relationships, combination? What?
I would say hard work, which is a cliche. Curiosity, which is not a cliche. A lot of people are not curious. I think right from my early days in ICSI, I was curious. And clearly, yes, trying to do your job to the best of your ability. Somewhere along the way, I think I got noticed, and very early on, maybe in the first 10 years. And my first big break came from the then chairman of ICSI, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Natkane. I'll spend just a minute or two. He sent me to London in 1981 to learn leasing. It was a great experience. I did learn leasing. That didn't take the 6 months he sent me for. But what I learned is to look at an instrument called a computer. I'd never seen a computer. And for working out pricing, you use a computer there. Though you had no idea what was happening at the back. I came back and I said that to do my pricing of leasing, I needed a computer. The boss was very wary because we were using, I think, a 1401 somewhere. I won't bore you with the story, but take you to the. Finally, he said, okay, you can get one. But there is a story here. And this is a story of, again, disruption and resetting your mind. So we said, this was a tabletop. What did he call it? A personal computer, a desktop. So how do you run a program? So I used one of our tech companies. It was not Tech Mahindra, it was something else. And they took 3 months to do a program for me. I remember taking a trial run, as it were, small error. They said it will take us another 2 weeks to debug. 2 weeks later, I got the answer. Next day, I was sitting in my office and a guy walks in. He's a typical computer techie of those days. We're talking about now 40 years back. He says, you're looking for a computer. I said, I was looking for one till yesterday, but not anymore. He says, no, you must come and see what I have. I said, what's different? Because I told you I already got one. He says, no, this one you can work with your own hands. And I don't believe you. But he says, what's the cost? We are at the Express Towers, come. So I said, okay, tomorrow morning I'll come. So I went there. It was very interesting. There's another techie there. So he says, what is it you want? My irritation levels are going up. So the next step, he was very patient. He says, can you reduce that to rows and columns? I said, yes. So he sat down and he started typing. I said, he's doing this and he's typing English. He's not typing code. So anyway, long story short, you all understand what I'm saying. He was putting data into a spreadsheet. And I was generating the data. In 20 minutes, the spreadsheet was ready. Now, he then asked me, now what? I said, this particular last row, I want to work out the IRR. So he does like this. He has no idea. He says, I've seen some formula here. I'm sure there is IRR. He puts IRR, he puts the range. And I think, did a mistake during the range. Then he corrected it, and I got the exact answer, which I had wanted the guys who were coding to get me. The math was the same. It was simple round numbers that I had given, which had to come to a discounting thing. Of course, you know where I then went. And I think that put me on a completely different path to look at technology. So this took me on. Thereafter, I went to the Asian Development Bank, worked there for about 8 years, Indonesia, in Philippines and Indonesia. Then I think the then chairman of ICICI, Mr. Wagul, he had seen my work earlier, asked me to come back and take over as CEO. That was the second big break. And I think was lucky. This is, I think, important for all of us to have good mentors. So Mr. Narkani that I mentioned earlier, the chairman in around 1980, was a great mentor. I'd worked with him for 10 years. Most of my learnings came from him. Then Mr. Wagul. I think you rarely get two outstanding teachers to teach you. And I think two most brilliant people that I have ever seen in my life. So he gave me this break. And then again, technology. So somehow technology seems to be, I can't run away from technology. So 96, when I came in, the challenge was simple, Mir. I could not afford technology. I could not afford a mainframe. So what do you do? But clearly, you all know 96. Things were moving on. We said, we will not go for a mainframe. So I told my team, there is no mainframe in our life. We will go with things we can afford. And of course, things we could afford became stronger and stronger. And even today, of course, nobody has then looked back. So we took a path to know. Another interesting thing happened. Number of branches that bank was allowed were limited. A new bank was allowed to limited, 50 in a year. And you had State Bank of India with 10,000 branches. So 50 in a year, imagine how many years? 200 years to get there? So you had to break that. How do you break it? No limits on ATMs. There are less than 100 ATMs in the country. So I said, we'll put in 1,000 ATMs in year one. Again, embrace technology. Open a call center, open internet banking, all early days, but you put your foot in there and you went along. And that's where the 90-day rule came. And I will stop with this example. The rest of it is more recent and people probably know about it, but the 90-day rule is important.
Yeah, sorry, no, please continue.
This is the last example I will use, and then we will cut. So I was in New York, and somebody, McKinsey actually, told me that we have a tech seminar. Would you like to attend? I said, okay. I have nothing. I have a day to spare. And there were garage startups talking about doing things in 90 days, and that struck me. I think you can do things in 90 days. You don't need 2 years to do things. And at that point of time, we were working on an engine, which is today, most of you would have probably dealt with this, the engine which is called ICICI Direct, the trading platform of ICICI Securities. I was given a 2-year time frame to implement it. And we were already into the 30th day of the 2-year time frame when I heard this. I took a flight that evening from New York. I landed London next morning. First thing I did was, of course, those days you had to called my office and said, reset. The 2-year time frame has been crashed to 90 days and 30 days are already over. So you guys have 60 days to implement it. The team did it in that time frame. So once you set a timeline, things start happening quicker and quicker. And of course, we kept pushing that as we went along. So most of my learnings came at this point from these incidents that I have narrated. Thereafter, it has been basically keeping your eyes and ears open and being curious. I'm curious. With every shift in technology, I'm curious. Back to you, Meir.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So you mentioned 1996 and sort of a mid-career of your life, and the theme today is resetting. And post-liberalization, you were taken over from what was previously the Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India, that was ICICI, to ICICI Bank. And you were credited with, taking a foray in the retail space. But one specific thing you did back then was decide to acquire a bunch of NBFCs, or non-banking financial institutions. And this was quite innovative at that time. Can you talk just a little bit as to how the thought for this came to you and the impact that it had?
It's very, 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 very interesting question. That happened because I realized that the developing banking model that was then prevalent did not have a future. The reason is very simple, not that it did not have takers, but funding was getting to be extremely difficult. Your sources of funds had dried up. So you needed to be a retail player, a bank to do this. But to be a retail player, you needed skills. And when you looked around, there was only one retail player in the country. that was a true retail player was HDFC in the mortgage business. So how do you build the skills? The skills were there in the NBFCs. They were doing auto lending, they were doing cards maybe, and some other financial products. Not really cards. Cards was only the Citibank, if I remember then. So you had to get know-how, as it were, of the retail space. And that access was given through the two acquisitions that we did, two NBFCs which were in distress. I think we took over for that reason. And in the same vein, I will say, I think we took over another 2 or 3 banks, 2 banks at that point in time to get the branches. I told you 50 branches were what we were allowed. So these 2 banks had 500 branches each. So at one go, we could go to 1,000. So the NBFCs provided us the knowledge, and the 2 acquisitions in the banking space provided us, the storefront, as it were.
And this is, this is a true case study. I think we're saying it so casually, but I think this was really visionary at that time. You talked about resets, and in my own life, I had a reset after a decade of coming to study in the US and working. I came back, and you mentioned one of the firms you worked with, McKinsey. That's where I spent some time, and you were front and center there as an innovator. And then I became a business news anchor, and that's where also ICICI was in the headlines, quite a bit. So it's real to get an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about your life. But within, again, innovations and resets, you took a banking mentality, a mindset, and a background into the new development bank, right? And that just within the title itself, it has both development and bank. And I read amongst many articles, I found an article which said that a cornerstone of your strategy was to look for investments that had good potential to pay back, so that would have a double bottom line, but that the return would be high. And I wanted to ask you, looking back your 5 years at the bank on that strategy, when you try to go in for better returns in order to make it sustainable, sometimes it comes at the trade-off of development. Did you see that?
Let me put things in context. I'll spend 2 minutes on the New Development Bank. The New Development Bank also, it was a whole lot of learnings. The learnings happened in this way, maybe. It was very, very interesting. Our hosts had provided a whole lot of facilities, but I will talk of technology because it's very interesting. So we have 2 members where basically so conservative that they had we were to move to a new space in 6 months. There was also a temporary space, but they showed me the drawings and the wiring. They said we have 2 lines. I said, why 2 lines? 2 lines. It says one for internal email and one for external email. I said, can you explain to me what is internal email and what is external email? So apparently in some of our member countries, the 2 don't meet. So I said, look, this is obscurantis. This is probably a 50-year-old thing. So we junk it. And there was half a floor kept for a data center. I said, I don't need it. So there is no data center in our life. So we don't need a data center. So we're going to go on the cloud. Huge opposition. So we had to get that in. Then in the sequence of events, then was in staff. My colleagues, who were vice presidents who were appointed by the government, basically said, oh, we must go for very experienced people from World Bank and so on. I said, we want a different mindset. And I have no patience to reset the mindset who comes, somebody who has worked 25, 30 years. I just can't do it. We are going to go with youth and we are going to train them. To me, that is a much faster course in the time that we have than retrain old minds. Of course, that's what happened. So that was the third part in terms of technology and then people. Then came the product. So we said we will be innovative. So one innovative product that we did was, we said we will do local currency financing. So we will raise money in local currency and lend in local currency. It has happened in a very substantive measure with the Chinese renminbi. I think it is about to happen with the ruble, and it's about to happen with the South African rand. India, it took, because the rupee went from, I would say, 60 or mid 50s to 75. We had to recalibrate that, and Brazil had some challenges. So that was an innovation that we did. In terms of private sector, we said we will be very prudent, and we will, of course, do up to 30% non-governmental sector. So 70% is sovereign, 30% is non-sovereign, where your returns indeed will be higher. And a small part of that 30% will be equities, where of course the risk is higher, but the reward could be higher. So this is the broad strategic map that we put in. And after 5 years, I was reviewing where we were on the strategic map, and almost everything that we had set in the beginning, we could achieve. To me, the biggest achievement was on two fronts. People front, getting the youth in, getting young people from around the 5 countries in, and on the technology front, against all odds, succeeding in putting everything on the cloud, so that when the problem hit us in March, delays in start, we could open the office with hardly 5 people. And actually, by April 3rd or 4th, my colleague, because I was pushing for that, tell me by which date can we work with 0 staff in office. By April 3rd or 4th, we were at a situation where we said, we don't need anybody in office. We can run the office from wherever we are. So to me, it's been an amalgam of learning, accelerated and reset by this recent event.
Great. And just for our viewers, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they represent 40% of the world population, right? And about 30% of the gross world product by PPP. So having that experience for you on top of all your experience ICICI was, I think, a real service. And I hope we see some of these infrastructure projects coming to life. But with all this experience now, you were also you're still considered a front runner for finance ministry. I won't go there because I know you've commented on it, but I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the economy related to the reset. And in a couple of videos, you've said that people have talked about a V-shaped recovery. And what you've said is that you see a U shape, but with a longer base for the U, and possibly not a 90 degrees. And it's based on some indicators. You mentioned some industries or sectors could signal that. I was wondering if you can talk to what indicators could signal it.
Yeah. What I said was basically a V shape is, you drop and then you suddenly accelerate. And that's not going to happen. So you drop and you will stall at that drop for some time, and thereafter, come up very quickly. So what I meant was that once you are out of the bottom, you will come back very quickly. That's what I meant. That it will be a V, rather than a V is an accelerated slope, but this will be even faster than that once you are out of the trough, as it were. The reason I'm saying it is, or at that point in time that I said this was, we looked at quick indicators, and that's why I said high frequency numbers are very important. Electricity consumption came back very fast. Thereafter, numbers from CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, basically at early July, he said by early June, because data is with the lag of 1 month, about 85 to 90% of jobs had come back. That is the second indicator. The third, I think, is migrants started coming back. Businesses started opening, manufacturing businesses. Interestingly, I hear that a lot of them are operating with 50% staff, but doing a great job. So they are back. Their demand is back. Now, there is a slight, I would say, discussion going on. Is this pent-up demand? I don't think there is all that pent-up demand. This is normal demand that is coming back. It may be at 80 to 90%, but it is not at 10 to 20%. The demand is going to come back. So a lot of businesses will come back very quickly. As these businesses come back, see, India is a country of large number of self-employed who have never been counted.
Yeah.
In the sense that formally they are not part of the organized sector, as it were. So they will come back very soon. And who are these people? These are the guys who, sell you stuff on the street, on the sidewalk. They give you your dosa, they give you your vada pav, they give you your pani puri, your bel puri, sell vegetables, fix your shoes for you. All these guys will come back once stay in place or lockdown is lifted. And clearly, we're talking of lockdown being lifted very quickly. So that part of the economy will come back very quickly. I would believe that some sectors that I mentioned earlier will go through pain, and that is why you will have a U-shaped recovery. Otherwise, it would have been a slightly quicker recovery. So my view is that it will take between 6 months to a year to come back to speed. Only problem with this disease has been it changes its footprint, as it were, ever so frequently. And that could make it a little difficult for someone to accurately say what could happen next. And that itself is, again, what I touched upon, to say that you need to continuously reassess where you are and recalibrate what you're doing. And I didn't say it because this disease is pushing you in that direction or forcing you to do this.
Well, thank you for, and we appreciate a bit of more of an optimism than many other economists and leaders on your side for a recovery. So within, I guess, banking, both at ICICI and at New Development Bank, you had the opportunity to innovate, to be the first chief of the New Development Bank, bring in retail forms, technology. But there was also an interesting time in your life where you were at the helm of Infosys, and at a time when that industry had matured. So this was after Tech Mahindra's takeover of Satyam, and you were there from 2011 to 15, when this was already one of the largest exporters. How did you innovate at a time where the industry was already matured?
Yeah, since let me put things in context. I think every tech company in the country at that point of time was reinventing itself, trying to reinvent itself. The challenge, the fulcrum, the pincer, as it were, which was hurting, was dropping margins. And all Indian companies have believed in excellence, and that excellence results in higher margins. So this pincer of margins being squeezed, and the pincer of certain businesses coming under challenge. And you all know the business that was under challenge for all of us was the ADM at that point in time. I think that was the early days of trying to navigate out of these challenges. And I'm happy to see that it took us probably 4 years or so to actually navigate out of that, not only for Infosys, but for all companies. And I think at that point of time, that was the key thing that we were working on. And all of us have gone through the same challenges.
Right. Now, you have won many awards. Amongst them is the Padma Bhushan Award also, which is the highest civilian honor. And I remember my grandfather as a cricketer, that was one of the biggest days of his life. But I wanted to ask you, amongst many of the awards, the Asian Business Leader of the Year, the Indian Innovator of the Year, HR, you got an HR award, you got an eSavvy award, Padma Bhushan. Amongst all these awards, what ranks as perhaps your biggest personal accomplishment in your career?
Yeah, Mayor, to be very frank, I have accepted all these awards with great humility. Again, you may say cliche, and as something that the team truly deserves. I led a team. I think I had a good team. I made efforts to build that team, nurture it, and it delivered. I believed in giving enormous freedom to the team to work, and my time was available to, I would say, the weakest member of the team. Not personally weak, the weakest team. So large part of time in, let's say, early 2000s in ICICI was a time to build people. So the team that needed the most support was the HR team. So people who would most often visit me would have been the HR team. So basically, all the things that we would see are the team takes the credit. A. B. I have not really. I do not hold these as something that you try to achieve. These happen. You receive it with humility, and thereafter you move on and work. So truly, I looked at awards in that context. I am very shy to display these awards. I am very shy to even at home to display it. And I will share this with you. A whole lot of these, if anybody came to my old office in ICICI, I didn't have a place to put it. But I had a room with the windows on 3 sides. And my team would keep it on the sill. And when I left ICICI, I said, it can all remain here, and ICICI can deal as appropriate with this, but I don't want to carry them with me as mementos. So I think all of them basically recognize the teams that work with me, and I think they take the credit.
Well, thank you for that candid response. So last question for me before a rapid fire round, and then maybe some questions from the audience. is much of my research and work is around adaptive leadership these days, and it's communication. And I think, as you may have explored, adaptive leadership is when there isn't a known solution. So Mukesh mentioned earlier, you're humble, but you're a taskmaster, and often most of the times you lead from the front. But I wanted to ask you if there was a time in your life where there was maybe a disruption, or where there wasn't a single solution and you had to give the work back to the people, and let your people sort of give the answers versus your being a shepherd sort of leading the flock. And can you think of a time when you had to perhaps regulate that distress and lead, get people to a new reality?
Yeah, I think there were several instances, most of them while I was CEO at the bank. And these needed deep analysis and response. Again, I speak what is in the public. If you recollect, there was a run on the bank in 2000 or 2001 or 2002. Now, what is your response to this? And I quickly asked a few elders in the banking business. And they basically said, if you believe you are healthy, there's only one response. Put money on the table and make sure that your customer sees it. And every customer who wants to take money, he gets the money. Look after that customer well. I thought it was very sage advice. And I then briefed the team and I said, you guys will implement this. You have to make sure that there is a flow of money. Every bank branch gets the money, gets cash, puts it on the table. ATMs are always stuffed, and the customer is well looked after. The customer lines up, offer him water or offer him tea. Make sure that you meet your duty. As far as we are concerned, we are very clear. This is a very strong bank. There are no impaired assets at that point in time. We've just gone through 2 capital raisings. This is happens at times, and we will need to face it. And I would think that was the most difficult time. And everybody stood by us, from the regulator to the government. Everybody stood by us in terms of whatever was required to be done. And within 2 days or so, it taught us very interesting lessons. And again, from every challenge, we have looked at lessons. The lesson there was, you need to get your logistics right. The biggest challenge was to make sure that cash moved from a vault to the bank or the ATM. Now, we didn't have vaults. The vaults were with some of the public sector banks. So cash had to move from their vault to our front end, as it were. So rapidly, we had to set up our own vaults and then do an exercise. How many vaults you require to make sure that within 3 hours, any branch of yours or any ATM of yours gets stuffed. So put technology in place and so on. So we ended up putting what I would call state-of-the-art vaults, which then reduced cash handling and so on, and had its own payoff. So to me, that was, but key here is lead from the front initially. Take stock of things to make sure things are all ordered, and then let your team execute. So on a day-to-day basis, I didn't interfere. The team would give me a feedback maybe once a day. That was it. Similar, one more situation was post that, and this was true for everybody. Post the Lehman thing in 2008, the whole business industry in India collapsed. I was then chair of CII. It was unbelievable. I had a National Council meeting just before the collapse, maybe in July or so. Indian industry was so gung-ho, unbelievable. There was a very senior journalist who was on the National Council. He basically said, either you guys are smoking something or I am smoking something. And he said, I am not smoking, so you can believe who is smoking, because you are too optimistic. And of course, separately, 2 months later, Lehman happens. And we have another National Council meeting. And there, I remember this was in Bhubaneswar. And people are saying we are in total state of collapse and we are dead and we will never come out of this and so on. This is corporate India saying this. Again, you had to read them, the facts of the case as it were, instill optimism, take a bold stand and say, we'll be out of this in 3 months. And at that point of time, again, some leading indicators indicated that you could probably come out of this very quickly. And indeed, India came out of it relatively unscathed in about 3 to 6 months' time. I think to me, these two are strong examples of challenge that hits you and the response that is required. But again, you assess, you lead, and then let the team execute.
Thank you very much for that candid response. We'll move on to the last part with me, which is rapid fire. And I'm going to ask you a number of questions. System one processing, don't think too much. Please share what comes to mind first and attempt to get to know you a little bit outside of work also. Okay. Great. So let's go. For global impact, Shanghai or Mumbai?
Mumbai, going forward.
Okay, going forward. Great. Sachin or Sunny?
Sachin or?
Sunny.
Sachin.
Okay. For your biopic, Amitabh or Shah Rukh?
Amitabh.
Okay. As a more effective, adaptive leader, Gandhiji or Modiji?
For the current time, Modi ji. For that time, Gandhi ji.
Okay. Okay, I will not argue with your response. Thank you. Rank in terms of beauty of the language in order. Konkani, Tulu, Kannada, and English.
Konkani, no brainer.
Okay, followed by?
Oh, rank order. Konkani, Kannada, and English.
Kannada and great. One word to describe the Indian Institute of Management in 1971.
You learned to throw away your boss.
Throw away your boss.
That's what you learned. That throwing away the boss is business number one. And then it has taken me 50 years now to understand that that's not ever going to happen.
Okay. If you were not a banker.
Race car driver.
Race car driver. Great. A book you would recommend.
Thinking Fast and Slow.
Oh, okay. That's the one system one processing, system two processing we talked about by Kahneman. Wonderful. A current leader you admire.
Mr. Modi.
Mr. Modi. Great. Now, one word that the following people would describe you in. Okay. A leader or in, say, the Brazilian central bank.
Brazilian central bank would probably say that I move too fast.
Okay, too fast. Okay. A board member for ICICI Bank in 1996.
Very interesting question. Again, brave.
Brave.
96 is probably not appropriate. It's probably 98, 99. Had at least two who thought it was very brave when I outlined what we would become. And at least one of them then would always use this as a case study to say that in 98 with nothing, Mr. Kamath painted a picture of a retail bank, which has come absolutely true. And this is again a business icon who said this at that point, but provided me complete and total support in this brave decision.
If you were not on the board of Infosys and you had to be on one of these boards, which one would it be? TCS, Wipro, HCL, Tech Mahindra?
You are, at that point in time, it probably would have been TCS.
And one word that the following people would describe you.
No, I will put in, for me, the choice was only three. I used to be on the board of Wipro long back.
I see.
86, I used to be on the board of Wipro, because that was a different avatar, as it were.
And just for our viewers, I mean, it's interesting you've been on the board of a pharmaceutical company, Lupin, as well as Schlumberger, which is an American oil services company. Your wife, Raj Lakshmi, how would she describe you in one word?
Impatient again.
Impatient. And today, your son, Ajay, how would he describe you?
Too hardworking.
Too hardworking. And final question is your daughter today. How would she describe you?
Oh, she would be full of admiration. Dad can't do anything wrong.
Mr. Kamath.
So not one word. Dad can't do anything wrong. I'm sure most parents here who have a daughter would probably the daughter would say the same thing.
Great. Well, thank you for those candid responses. I will end with the same way I started, that I want to thank you for your service for the last 50 years and tell you that it was a real honor to speak to you. I will hand it over to KG now for any additional questions that may have come up.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
there are questions in the pipe. We can read that out, but I can see Jagdish on the panel and Vrinda and of course Ashish. If you have anything that you want to ask of Mr. Kamath, please do go ahead. All right. So so there's a question from Derek Kandur saying that, is there any blog article where we can get started with trust on the aspects of mutual funds or stock market investment? Is a very fundamental question he's asking. I think what he's talking about is, the issue of trust.
Nothing comes readily to mind because something I have not, applied my mind to in recent years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. What is the suggestion that you have for, in terms of a message for youngsters who will start their corporate careers now?
I think you are just in time. You are fit for a purpose and fit for whatever you set to do. And do not be afraid to disrupt the workplace, as it were. You may not be able to replace the boss, but you can certainly redo things that are being done, because at this time receptivity will be at its highest.
All right. Privil, Amrita, what some of those questions that came in early, do you want to read anything out of that?
Yes, KG, just a moment.
Meanwhile, do you think demonetization was something that if it was redone, you would do it differently?
No, my belief then and now is the same. That it was absolutely correct to do it at that point in time, because we need to look at all the context which was explained then, which to me was compelling.
Okay. I think one last question we will read out, Privil, from your list, and then we are at the end of the hour at 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, KG. Well, Kamath sir, I have a question which is close to me as well. I am also from Mangalore, and I would want to know about your association, since your childhood from Mangalore, if you would want to share one or two pointers.
Yeah, I think I had a very happy upbringing in Mangalore. It's a small place. I think it still is small. At that time it was about a population of 1 lakh, so everybody knew everybody. And my association is for the first, I would say 22 or so years, 22 years, because I did my engineering also from NIIT Surathkal, then called KREC, and it was great fun. I was a day scholar, so riding a bike to college. My parents used to have a tile factory, the Mangalore roofing tiles. It was 10 kilometers beyond my my school, my college. So afternoons I would go there and keep an eye on the business, as it were. So very interesting experience. You learned in your engineering skills. You learned a little bit of business, because at the end of the year you have to cast your balance sheet and profit and loss account, and keep an eye on the daily things. So a very, I would say, typical small town experience. But I had this added advantage of learning a skill or a business along with my education. I had, again, great teachers who I have to be thankful to, right from high school onwards.
Amazing.
Superb, sir. Superb. I think we are at the end of the hour. So one final comment I'll make. We have one of your proteges as a director on the board of Tech Mahindra. Shika Sharma is there.
Oh, yes.
And we can see the sharpness that she has. Obviously, she has it, but I'm sure your hand and your mentorship is visible. So thank you very much on that note, sir, for having agreed to come on Prime Time at 1900.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mukesh, for bringing sir over. And I hope some of the rumors that are there around you come true. Uh, we look forward to optimism. We look forward to wisdom. We look forward to your execution hand. We need all of that. And thank you, Mihir, for this very, very wonderful moderation and, the chat that you facilitated. And thank you, audience.
Thank you.
For,
Thank you, guys.
yeah.
Go ahead
Thank
with
you, sir.
optimism. My last words, go ahead with optimism. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a
Bye.
good day. Thank you. Thank you.